Welcome everybody, welcome to the Workbench, and welcome to the Tropical Woodworker, the only woodworking YouTube channel that gives you a dash of Malaysian reality. Let's face it, most of the videos that you see online are people from the Western world. They have access to tools that most of us don't, brands that we don't get to buy, models that will probably never get released in the market here, and wood species that, you might ever only hear the names of. Stuff like that. So I thought I'd make a YouTube channel to start instructionals with a lot more Malaysian context. So with that in mind, we're going to start with our very first episode of Budget Tool Review. Now, the whole point of Budget Tool Review is because a lot of the options that you can buy online for woodworking tools, a lot of them are cheap, a lot of them come from China, but you can still get away doing quite a fair amount of good woodworking with budget tools. But there are also some budget tools that, they're brands that you've never heard of before. There's some things that you probably want to avoid because, the tool doesn't even function properly in the first place. So I'm going to give you a bunch of different opinions of stuff that you can buy, stuff I think you can get away with, and stuff I think you want to try and avoid. And to give you a little bit of context, I'm also going to give you actual links to some of the stuff that you can buy. So if you're watching this in the far future, please bear in mind that some of these links may be dead. They're dated according to, whenever this video was made. So we're going to start with hand saws, because if you're starting out woodworking, there are a couple of very simple tools that you want to buy, simple things that you want to use, and one of them is going to be a hand saw. Now, most of the saws that you're going to see in, basic hardware stores and stuff like that are going to be very big, rough saws. You're going to see a lot of stuff like this, basically. There's a metric in the woodworking world we call TPI, tooth per inch, and a lot of the saws for general work are going to be in the realm of 7 to 11 TPI, and these are really rough saws. So you're not going to do a lot of fine woodworking with stuff like this. You might even find back saws like that, and they'll give them names. They'll say things like, oh, that's a tenon saw. No, it's not. Unless you're cutting a tenon that's 5 inches large, you probably don't want to be working with stuff like these. These are really rough. They're more meant for, just kind of rough cuts. If you've got a big log you want to cut in half, go ahead, you can use that. You've got a big plywood panel that you want to rip in half, but not very precisely, you can go ahead as well. But these are going to be mostly in the realm of large, low-numbered TPI, large teeth saws. Now, there are some push saws that you can buy. I think I've seen very limited options in places like Ace Hardware, where you can get high TPI saws, very fine saws, almost dovetail saws in the push variety. But they're very rare, they're not easy to come by, and they can be very expensive. So the main option that you want to look for when it comes to fine woodworking is going to be the Japanese pole saw. Now, if you've seen a lot of videos online, you'll see brands like Gyokucho, you'll see brands like Suizan and stuff like that. A lot of this is very difficult to come by over here, and we do have a lot of made in China budget options. So I'm going to give you a rundown of a couple, and I'm going to recommend a couple that you can buy. So let's start with this guy. You can find this guy over here, and the link will be in the description. This is like the Yatoli Ulfix brands. They're pretty cheap per saw. But I don't recommend them. The main reason why I don't recommend that you buy one of these is because they are still in the realm of incredibly rough saws. The teeth, despite that they are the crosscut and the rip cut blades, the teeth are way bigger, and they are still within the realm of probably around 10 to 12 TPI, which can give you a very rough cut. So you're not wanting to make really fine joinery or cuts with this guy. The curve is going to be quite wide. So I don't recommend that you buy these. These are really meant for really rough cut stuff. You can get one of these and treat it like a kataba saw. But even for a kataba saw, there are other options out there. One of the options that I work with a lot in my workshop is this guy over here, the Tajima brand. Again, they're really, really cheap. They're even bigger teeth compared to this Yatoli guy over here, but they work very well as a very rough cut, quick kind of a pull saw thing that you can get. So that guy, try to stay away from it. I don't recommend it as a fine cut saw. The ones that you will also see a lot are this guy here with this orange handle. Now, I'll let you in on a dirty little secret. This guy is made in China, and there is a Chinese brand. It's spelled QIHONG, QIHONG or QIHONG, however the heck you want to pronounce it. They're actually okay. They're actually not too bad. This guy is one of them. And this is my saw, by the way, which I still work with. I'm still using this for a lot of my fine cuts and stuff like that. As you can see, the cross-cut blades are way, way finer than the Yatoli. And the rib cut has this like big teeth here, and then it shrinks down to small teeth down there. So if you're doing like the start of a rib cut, you can use that to start. And it's really, really helpful to have that gradation of teeth size for the rib cut blades. But the dirty little secret is that whenever you see this shape in this model, nowadays, there are some manufacturers, whether it's from a different factory or something, that make the blade almost exactly the same kind, but it's not the same brand. It's actually almost like a brandless one. There isn't the original QIHONGs, and mine still has some, although I've sanded it off a little bit. They have the brand imprint on the blade, but there are some now that you can get that don't have the brand imprint on the blade. And it's funny to think that a Chinese-made pole saw now has counterfeits. And the copies, which don't have the original branding, are actually not good. What I've discovered is that we've bought a couple before and used them, is that the blade tooth set is not even. So you'll get certain parts of it where the teeth are kind of sticking out more than the actual width of the blade. And you'll get sections where the teeth are kind of bent inwards a little bit. So you don't get a nice flat blade over here. So they can be a little bit lower quality. So if you're looking to buy one of these, I will recommend that you try and find the ones that are directly from China, maybe, but also try and find the ones that do have the branding imprint on them. QIHONG brand is actually really decent. They also make tiny little saws like this. This is of the same brand, and this is actually the same TPI as that guy over there. So they're really decent. They're not very expensive, and I really highly recommend that you buy at least this guy over here. It's pretty good. It works really well, and I've been using it for like 5 to 6 years now. And this is still the first blade. I haven't changed the blade either, so it lasts. It's great. The other option that you might come across will be these guys over here. These guys are from a local seller from Johor. I don't think there is any brand associated with them. They're just called like Japanese pole saws or rattan handle saws or something like that. If you go to Shopee and you just put in Japanese pole saw, you might just come across this guy. They're sold in 2 different models, the normal Ryobi saw and also a Dozuki. I'll talk about that in a second. These guys are great as well. The blades are almost exactly the same as the QIHONG ones. They have that gradation of tooth size. They have the quite fine TPI, and they're generally quite decent. And they are even cheaper as well than the QIHONG. The only one thing that I found that is generally a problem with a blade like this is the quality control is not perfect. So we bought a couple that work fine. But this one here in particular, you can see that the blade holder is not perfectly set into the handle. So you have a little bit of this wobble going on. Now, that might not necessarily be an issue with the operation of the blade per se, but whenever things like these are moving or vibrating, you get a feeling that they might fail at some point in the future. So it's kind of a hit and miss at the moment. You get some good ones, you get some poor ones, but they are really cheap as well. And if you're looking just to buy a Japanese saw just to get started, I really recommend these. They are absolutely fine. They can work as well. There's absolutely nothing wrong with these guys. Most of the work that I do around the shop, whether it's joinery, whether it's really fine pieces, I still work with saws like these. So I'm not even upgrading yet because they serve me fine. So if you're looking for a cheap pole saw, these are okay. Now, if you come across this guy here and you are doing some research on YouTube and you're seeing people talk about the usage of a Dozuki style blade, when it comes to cutting joinery and dovetails and stuff like that, you might be tempted to also pick up one of these. They are extremely cheap. They are almost exactly the same price as that guy. But this would not be really considered a Dozuki. It does kind of fool you into thinking that you've got a lot more support and accuracy with that little spine at the back. But that's not the only thing that makes a Dozuki blade. The whole point of a Dozuki blade is that the steel is actually incredibly thin. So the curve that you end up with is supposed to be in the realm of like 0.3 to 0.5 millimeters. This isn't that. So actually this spine is not entirely necessary. So the spine on a Dozuki is really meant for the rigidity of the blade because it's so thin. But this guy isn't that. And the other thing is that usually Dozuki blades will come in incredibly high TPI to give you an even finer cut. This guy is pretty much the same as that cross-cut blade. So it doesn't give you necessarily any advantage. It doesn't really traditionally act as a dozuki blade. However, because it's kind of still so cheap, it's kind of still worth getting one, just because, especially when you're starting out and you don't necessarily have the confidence with the thinness and the flexibility of a Ryobi blade like this, and you want to feel that rigidity while you cut. It's still worth getting. It comes in a set, and I believe they're like about 30 bucks each. So if you have the extra 30 bucks to spare, pick one up. It's fine. Just don't feel like that's going to give you any more advantage over using the Ryobi. It's not a real dozuki. So then we go into the realm of what is a real dozuki, and well, it's something like that. The TPI is way higher. It's in the realm of 18 to about 21, somewhere about there. The blade is incredibly thin. I mean, this guy is so flexible that spine is really absolutely necessary. These guys are not budget saws anymore. They're in the realm of 250 to 300 ringgit per saw. But there are some brands that you can get locally that are pretty decent. This one is an Okada Z saw. There are also some Gyokucho brands that you can get. But if you're looking for something even more mid-range, Kakuri makes a great Ryobi saw. I've got a couple of friends who've been using them. I think it's about 150 bucks for a Ryoba rather than like 300 bucks for one. And that's kind of a good split down the middle. But if you do have the money for it, I do recommend, if you're looking to get a dozuki blade specifically, to buy either an Okada Z saw or Gyokucho blade. I believe the seller's in Johor as well. And one of the reasons why you do want to pick someone who does sell these on the regular is that just in case you need the replacement blades, you kind of know where to get them. So my final recommendation when it comes to buying budget blades especially is, well, pick one and stick with it. The reason is, especially when it comes to Ryobas with the interchangeable blades, but the same thing applies for any other blade that you're buying, is that even though they're the same size, they look pretty similar, the blades can tend to be different. And you can see here that the way in which the blades attach into the handle can often be different. And they are not necessarily universal. So that blade, you will have to buy the replacement from the same either brand or manufacturer or seller online. So just keep that in mind, that whatever you're buying, you're kind of stuck to that particular one. You can't just buy interchangeable blades. They don't make them standard. So yeah, so that's my saw. And I've used this exact same saw and some of my other budget tools to make stuff like this. So if you're looking to get started into woodworking and you want to buy some budget tools and you don't have the money to buy some really nice expensive stuff, you don't need nice expensive stuff. You can get away with something like this. So give it a shot. And I'll be back next time to talk about some chisels. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time on Budget Tool Review.